Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Jarvis. And before we get into today's video, I wanted to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you wanted to go and follow me on the other socials, you could go and find them in the description in my link tree. You'll find my Instagram, Twitter, Twitch there, as well as my Discord, and you can join that as well. But in today's video, I want to go and review the commander decks I built for 2022. These are going to include the commanders themselves, the reason why I built the deck, cards that I like in the deck that aren't the commanders, and the ways that I win with the deck, or at least one of the ways. The first deck that I built was the Reality Chip. The Reality Chip is 1 in a blue, legendary artifact creature equipment jellyfish, and it's a 0/4. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. As long as it is attached to a creature, you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library, and has Reconfigure for 2 in a blue. Reconfigure is a new mechanic that was introduced in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. What it is that you can go and equip creatures to other creatures. The Reality Chip is the only legendary creature that has this ability, making it the only legendary equipment that can also be your commander. The reason why I built this deck is because I really like playing off the top of my library. I like Bowls of Citadel, Mystic Forge, Future Sight type effects. Just let me go and play off the top of my library. And when I built the Reality Chip, I went and built it with an Artifact Cheerio Storm type style in play and in mind. Now, the card that I like in this deck that isn't my commander is Thibblethip the Lost. If you don't know who he is, he's 1 in a blue, legendary creature homunculus. That when he enters the battlefield, you draw 1 card. But if you cast him from the top of your library, or if you cast him from your library, or he just enters play from your library, you draw 2 cards. And Fibblethip, the reason why I like him is that he doesn't get a lot of love because he is a rather lower power card. But where I could go and generate the value of casting from the top of my library with the Reality Chip makes it a nice little fun include in this deck. Now, one of my main win cons of this deck is using Sensei's Divining Top, a cost reducer like Ethereum Sculptor, and Aetherflux Reservoir. If you aren't aware how this combo works, you go and get the cost reducer to make Sensei's Divining Top cost 0 when you cast it. You then cast it from the top of your library using the Reality Chip's ability, and you go, and then it enters. You then tap it and draw a card and put it back on top of your library. Every time you do that, you're casting the Reality Chip. You're casting a Divining Top, adding to your Storm count, making it that every time you do that, you gain life with Aetherflux Reservoir. The first time you cast it's 1. The next time you cast it, you gain 2, 3, etc., etc. That by the time you're only like 15, 20 spells deep, if even that far, you could go and just laser beam the opponents using the Reservoir. The next commander I built is actually my Pauper EDH commander. If you don't know what Pauper EDH is, you can use any uncommon legendary creature as but all of your any uncommon creature. It does not have to be legendary, but you can use the legendary ones as well. And all the cards in your 99 have to be common and have to have been printed at common at some time. The commander I chose for this was Quasar Augur of Agonies. It's 1 white, blue, black. Legendary creature Cephalid Advisor. It's a 3/4 that whenever you draw a card, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Reason why I picked Quasar is because I love those types of effects that reward you for drawing cards and put it to your opponents. I play Fate Unraveler. I play Underworld Dreams. I play the new Shieldred. It's just something that I really like doing. Now, the card I really love in this deck is Fall from Favor. It's 2 in a blue. Enchantment Aura. You enchant a creature. When it enters the battlefield, you tap enchanted creature, you become the monarch. And it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step unless that player is the monarch. So what I like about this is you're able to go and tap down a creature for probably a pretty long time. So big creature, stop it from attacking. But it introduces a monarch to the game as well, which when you want to go and draw cards, the Monarchy is very important because it gets you that extra card at the end step. Now, it's just a lot of fun to go and have an enchantment on there that goes and stops your opponent's creature. It's just something I really enjoy doing. I'm a little bit of a control player, if you can't tell. The way that I win with Quasar is essentially just drawing cards. I have a lot of card draw effects, ops, ponders, all of that. But in Pauper EDH, it really doesn't go quite fast enough, so I wanted to go and find a way to punish my opponents even more. So I started playing effects like Epicure of Blood. Epicure of Blood is 4 and a black, creature and it's a vampire for a 4/4. That whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So whenever I draw a card, my opponent loses life, I gain a life. Then when I gain that life, another opponent loses a life. So for every 1 life I gain from drawing cards, my opponents lose 2 life. And then if I have a lifelinker out as well, this could punish it for that same thing. Now, the next commander I built is another Streets of New Capenna commander. It's Rigo Streetwise Mentor. It's Hybrid Selesnya, white, Hybrid Azorius for a legendary creature, Cat Citizen. It enters the battlefield with a shield counter on it. And whenever you attack a player or planeswalker with 1 or more creatures with power 1 or less, draw a card, and it's a 2/2. So, I've been trying to go through by building a monocolor commander for each color. I have completed 4 out of the 5. The 4th one that I built was Rigo. Actually, Rigo's the 3rd one I built. You'll see the 4th one later on. Rigo, I built it as a mono-white deck. I don't like a lot of mono-white strategies. They are white weenies for the most part, so I was like, how can I go and make it something that I enjoy doing? So with Rigo, I get rewarded for playing mono-white by going and drawing a card when I go and attack with those white weenies. So that's really what made me go and build this deck, is I like drawing cards, and I like being rewarded for drawing those cards. Now, with Rigo, I just played a lot of good mono-white stuff, as well as just a bunch of 1 power and 0 power cards, plus ways to create 1/1 tokens. The favorite card I have in this deck that is not my commander is Drumbellower. It's 2 and a white creature spirit with flying. It's a 2/1 that you untap all creatures you control during each other player's untap step. So it acts as a sideboard muse, and when you get those 15, 20, 30, even more 1/1 white weenies flooding the board, you're being able to swing out with all of them. Sure, you're going to lose some of them. And then untap and have them back as blockers feels really good. And every time I play Drumbellower, it has saved me time and time again. Now, one of the main ways I win in this deck is Halo Fountain. Halo Fountain is an artifact that was also introduced in New Capenna. It's 2 and a white. For 1 white mana and tapping it, you untap a tapped creature you control and create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. For 2 white mana and tapping it, you untap 2 tapped creatures you control and draw a card. So it actually adds card draw there as well. And then for 5 white mana, you tap it and untap 15 tapped creatures you control, and you can win the game. And I love these you win the game effects, so much so that I also play Approach of the Second Sun in the deck. But the next commander we have is the next commander in my monocolored series, Lelia the Blade Reforged. 2 and a red, legendary creature spirit warrior. It's a 2/2 with haste that whenever it attacks, exile the top card of your library, and you may play the card this turn. And whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from your library and or your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Lelia. So, the reason why I built Lelia all boils down to gamble. The reason why it boils down to gamble is because I got the secret lair that this secret lair art gamble was in. And I felt bad just having a gamble sitting around not being played. And I'm like, I need to go and build a mono red deck to go and put a gamble in. Because I really don't like playing it, and I don't really like playing red in conjunction with other colors. I'm not a big fan of what red typically does. I play a lot of blue, I play a lot of black. With going gamble, I'm like, I went through all of the mono red legendaries I had, and I came down to Lelia, and I saw that there was card advantage stapled to the commander because every time you attack, you got to exile a card and play that. Only that turn, but you still got to play that. So that was another card you saw on your turn. So I went to go and did that. I went to all the other exile card effects from graveyards, from libraries, from my library, just to go and grow Lilia and try to kill someone with commander damage. But then I also played some really good spells that also exile cards from graveyard, and one of them is my favorite card from the deck, and that's Arcane Bombardment. Arcane Bombardment is 4 and 2 red. It's an enchantment that whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, not only on your turn, on any turn, exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard, then copy each card exiled with Arcane Bombardment. You may cast any number of the copies without paying their mana costs. The first time I played this, I'm like, okay, it's exiling a card from my graveyard, that's why I'm playing it. But I'm playing between 28 and 30 instants and sorceries in my deck. So I was able to go and regularly trigger this to get anywhere from 3 to 5 instances of sorceries under it quite easily. And it allowed me to go and start storming off, going and making Lilia very large. And my favorite one ever with this was when I was able to go get Gamble out as the first sorcerer underneath it, and be able to go and get one of my wincons, which was Grape Shot. So Grape Shot, you can storm off. You storm off just naturally by Arcane Bombarding, casting those spells, going and just casting a lot of small card draw spells like Faithless Lootings, Thrill of Possibility, stuff like that. Or also you could use Burgie and some of the other paired with Burgie, where every time you cast a spell, you get to create the red mana, and Green Ignis, where you return it to your hand and you get mana. So it lets you go and cast Green Ignis over and over and over again. Go net neutral on mana, but it allows you to storm off to go and have a huge storm count for Grape Shot. The next commander I built is Sir Conrad the Grim. Sir Conrad the Grim is a little bit of a misnomer as a new commander that I built, as a commander I built in 2022. I've actually had a Sir Conrad deck from 2019 when he first released in Throne of Eldraine until about the week after Command Fest Philly. After Command Fest Philly, what happened was I realized I wasn't really playing him that much because I had tuned his power level so high that it was a wannabe CEDH deck where I could easily win on turn 3 or 4, sometimes turn 2, if I wasn't interacted with. So I sold Sir Conrad because he had some very valuable parts. I have 2 small children that they're 1-year-old identical girls that they take a lot of money. So I just sold it. And then I was missing having a Sir Conrad deck. So last month, I rebuilt Sir Conrad. I made it more of a budget-friendly version, more that like what Sir Conrad originally was when I first built it. So if you don't know what Sir Conrad is, what Sir Conrad does, he's 3 and 2 black. That whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere, or a creature card that leaves your graveyard, he deals 1 damage to each opponent. And then for 1 and a black, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. And he's a 5/4. My favorite card in this deck is actually Protection Racket. It's 2 and a blue. Enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, repeat the following process for each opponent in turn order. Reveal the top card of your library. That player may pay life equal to that card's mana value. If they do, exile that card, otherwise put it into your hand. The reason why I love this card so much is unless you're revealing lands and your opponent can just pay 0 life and put exile it, you're either going and dealing damage to your opponent or you're drawing cards. And a lot of times with the pods I play with, they know how much incremental damage Sir Conrad builds up that they just give me those cards unless it's a big bomb. And then if it's a big bomb, they're taking anywhere between 5 and 8 life. So it always pays off super well. And I have yet to have a bad play experience with Protection Racket. Now, the way I win the deck in this deck, or one of the ways, my favorite way actually, is Mind Crank and Bloodchief Ascension. Mind Crank is an artifact that costs 2 mana that whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from the top of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Mind Crank by itself is very good with Sir Conrad because your opponent loses life, triggers Mind Crank, mills. If they hit a creature, then all of your opponents mill because they all lose life from Sir Conrad. So that could just go and create a chain. That's not infinite, but it does create a chain. But when you get Bloodchief Ascension, which is a black enchantment that costs 1 black mana, at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Bloodchief Ascension, and whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if it has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life. If you do, you gain 2 life. In doing that, when they lose 2 life from Bloodchief Ascension, because the card goes to the graveyard, they go and mill 2 cards with Mind Crank, re-triggering Bloodchief Ascension, and you kill your opponents with life, or you mill their entire library out. And the final commander that I built in 2022 is Liberator Urza's Battlethopter. 3 generic mana, legendary artifact creature Thopter, flash, flying, you may cast colorless spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast this spell is greater than Liberator Urza's Battlethopter's power, put a +1/+1 counter on Liberator. And it's a 1/2. That last section of text is essentially meaningless in this deck. The things that you really worry about is that it is a Shimmer Mirror in the command zone, essentially. But then it also gives your colorless spells flash. And the big thing about colorless spells is you play it with Eldrazi Titans, or Eldrazi in general. You play it with the instances of sorceries from Strixhaven, the ones that were lessons that otherwise you wouldn't be able to cast. You could go and cast an instant speed, All Is Dust. So that's really where I like that it's colorless spells and artifact spells. And the reason why I wanted to build Liberator Urza's Battlethopter is because I love the fact that I could go and play at instant speed, and it was at a low cost of 3 mana, that I could cast it from my command zone, turn 3 on my opponent's end step, go hold up my mana all turn, play out the creatures or play out the artifacts that could make a big impression on the game, and then go and just hold that mana the entire time and only make the plays that I need to. And it also dissuaded my opponents from swinging at me, because if they swung at me, they had to go and worry about whether or not I could go and flash in a big blocker. Now, the favorite card in my deck is Mirrorworks. It's 5 generic mana artifact that whenever another non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, put a token that's a copy of that artifact onto the battlefield. You're able to get so much value from Mirrorworks because a lot of times you're holding up all of your mana anyway, that you flash in a Soul Ring. Oh, you pay an additional 2, you get another Soul Ring. You just paid 3 mana for 4 mana. Even Arcane Signet, that's 4 mana for 2 mana. Those are really good returns. Well, actually, you don't play Arcane Signet in this deck. What am I talking about? How about Mind Stone instead? Yeah, never play Arcane Signet or Command Tower in a colorless deck, because then they don't tap for anything. Same thing with Commander Sphere. But it just does so much work being able to go and make those artifacts large. Or duplicate those artifacts, I should say. It's such a huge deal for me. And I love every time that happens. Now, one of the ways I can win in this deck, other than just going and doing straight beats to the face, is Walking Ballista. I have all the Eldrazi Titans in the deck. I have Blightsteel Colossus in the deck. I have Big Ugin. I have Small Ugin. I have all the Karns. And all those things combined can go and help me win the game by going and just doing damage, wiping boards, all that stuff. But there's times that you just need that one little safety valve. And Walking Ballista, with creating infinite mana with Basalt Monolith and Rings of Brighthearth, is that safety valve for me in this deck. I know it's tired, but even the tired ones work. Now, What you'll notice for me, all my decks have an infinite combo win to go and close out the game, and that's because I am a big believer that infinite combos, at least one, is needed in every deck just to finish those games off. You don't have to tutor for it, you don't have to go for it. Naturally find it, and you can win the game that way. You'll also notice that I do like a lot of artifact builds. I like manipulating the top of my deck. I like drawing cards. And this is pretty much how I am as a player. And 2022 was a good microcosm of how I play Magic. You'll see that's how I play Magic in Standard. That's how I play Magic in Draft. That's just how I am as a Magic player. Now, let me know in the comments what commander decks you built in 2022. If you want to go and see my deck list, in that link tree I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's my Mox Field as well, so you can go and see all these deck lists in my Mox Field. But until next time, everyone, have a great one. See ya.